Dead Space is the start of one of my favorite trilogies in all of gaming. There is a remake of this first title arriving in January 2023, so I wanted to take a quick look back at why the 2008 release has become such a beloved classic. You play as Isaac, an engineer tasked with finding out what happened to Ishimura, a spaceship in orbit above the planet Aegis 7. It is still a terrifying, violent, and brilliant title that holds up far better than I could ever have imagined while playing it on my Series X. It is available through EA Play if you have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, so let's get into why this one's worth checking out in the XboxEra review of 2008's Dead Space. Originally, I was going to try to play this game on my PC through the EA Play app. Sadly, it was released back in the era of real shoddy PC ports, and it requires a lot of manual fixes to get it working well. I hit a bug not too long in the game where I simply couldn't advance, and so I swapped over to my Series X. Sadly, there are no FPS boosts or resolution enhancement, but despite that low resolution and blurry textures, the game somehow still looks kinda great. I will say the story of these games, and I loved all three of them in very different ways, is best experienced with as little knowledge as possible going in. Just know that you are an engineer sent to figure out why a ship has stopped responding. Lots of bad things have gone on, and immediately you are introduced to the necromorphs. The best way to stop them is with your trusty plasma cutter as you meticulously sever their arms, legs, midsections, heads, pretty much everything. This is a survival horror game, so your inventory is limited, ammo can be sparse, and it is still absolutely terrifying on your first playthrough. For such an old game, the writing holds up well, and in general, the voice acting's solid. This wasn't the biggest budget title, but you can see the skill, craftsmanship, and dedication to working that the creatives behind the series have had. It is played in a rather close-up, third-person perspective with an emphasis on shooting and telekinetic abilities. While aiming, you can press X to initiate a slowdown on enemies in the environment, or B to move very specific items and environmental objects. Much like the limited ammo system, you have a very limited amount of that stasis power at the start. You can find power nodes and credits as you stomp on dead bodies or open up crates, which allows you to add to your overall health pool, your stasis abilities, reserves, and buying new weapons and healing items as well. It's not always an action title though. There are tons of puzzles and zero-gravity sections where you find yourself jumping from surface to surface like a missile. Sections with no atmosphere as a timer on your back slowly ticks down, showing when you'll run out of oxygen. And it's all served by a minimalistic UI that has indicators for your health and stasis meters built into the back of your engineering suit. Along with the helmet design, it's iconic and is served further by a functional UI for your inventory. One of the other cool parts, though you have to use it a lot, is whenever you press in the right stick, Isaac will put his hand down and an indicator path shows up as a holographic image in the environment. It looks awesome, but it does kind of fade away too quickly. One of the few other very minor annoyances I have with the game is how the upgrade tree works. You routinely have to spend the hard-to-find power nodes on empty slots that don't do anything, and it feels like a bit of a tease as the power ramp and quality of life improvements just aren't there on every use. I know, it's a very minor thing, though in a game that still feels well-balanced in keeping things tough, but rarely unfair feeling, it did stick out. The game was originally released back on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in 2008. I was able to boot it up and play it on both a PC and Xbox Series X thanks to its inclusion in EA Play. Though, as an older title, it routinely goes on sale for quite cheap as well if you prefer to own your games. It is a fully single-player title, and it performed flawlessly on my Series X. It supports quick resume, and I never once had an issue with it while playing through. The game is stuck running at 30 frames per second on console at a rather low resolution, but it still actually felt pretty good to aim in, which was one hell of a surprise. Most of the 360 era titles I go back to feel off when using the right stick for aiming, due in large part to that 30 frames per second target. So it was nice to have this one feel good off the bat because there are no options for fine-tuning any of the controls otherwise. The story, graphics, and occasional music stings hold up really well after all these years. I streamed myself playing a lot of the title, and while there is a large reliance on jump scares during gameplay, the story itself is legitimately terrifying most of the time. It's a great setup for what I think is a great trilogy of games in the Dead Space family. This one is firmly in the survival horror category. Dead Space 2 shifts more to action horror, with Dead Space 3 adding in co-op with that action horror focus. In conclusion, Dead Space holds up far better than I had hoped for. It plays well, looks good, sounds great, and is one of the best ever in its genre. Few games have ever mixed in the jump scares with a story that provides such a creepy, terrifying, and well-written plot like this one still does. You can download it now on PC or Xbox through Game Pass Ultimate, and if you haven't ever played this one before, do yourself a favor and play it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. And we'll see you here next time on XboxEra.